Hello everyone and welcome to Luis Discusses Everything. As promised in one of my previous videos, I wanted to show you a sort of like how the midterm landscape is going, specifically in the Senate. I did share a little bit through my shorts as to like how it would look like, but basically this is the map that I wanted to show you. As you can see in the map, you see shaded in blue the states that are going in favor of Democrats or will go in favor of Democrats. The states shaded in red or light red are the states that are going in favor of the Republicans. Now, you see the stark contrast, so you can see, okay, those are more or less races that we know where they're gonna go, right? But the big races where we don't know, where it's a toss-up, where it's like a tie between the Democrats and Republicans, are Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, right? These states here, shaded in kind of like a brownish type element, right? As you can see, based on the map and the math, up here it tells you how many seats would each party have based on the color gamut, right? Based on the map, Democrats would have 47 seats and Republicans would have 49 seats. That means the Republicans only need 2 more seats because they don't have the vice president to win the Senate. In this case, if they just captured Pennsylvania, which is a seat they already have, and captured Georgia, boom, they already have control of the Senate later on. But these 4 states are toss-up for a number of reasons, right? One of them is the fact that the state itself, like people choose in very small margins, like the candidates that win in those states are simply by 1 or 2 points, versus in other states where you might see a wider victory. Like for example, average victories in California for senators there are like 10 points or more above the 50% mark, right? Candidates in Kansas, for example, where we had a recent election, it's the same thing. But in a state like Pennsylvania, Joe Biden won by less than 1%, like around 1-2%. I don't remember the exact term. But let's start with that state, Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, you have the phenomenon of an incumbent that is retiring. What that means is that the person who's currently in power in that seat has decided, you know what, packing my bags. That doesn't mean they reached the age of 65. It's just that after a certain time in the Senate, you can just say, yep, I'm not doing this anymore. And they end up being consultants or working for a corporation, kind of like the revolving door. But in that state, you have the incumbents that are retiring, but you have then on the Democratic side, John Fetterman, who is the current Attorney General of the state. He's running kind of like an insurgent campaign where he's not wearing like suit and tie like normal politicians or status quo politicians. And he's lived his whole life in Pennsylvania and whatnot. So he has kind of like this rugged look to him, which is pretty interesting. On the other spectrum, you have another interesting character with Mehmet Oz. Mehmet Oz is an individual, a politician who wasn't a politician before. He was just a TV celebrity who was just randomly chosen by Trump because, not randomly, it's because Trump thought that he was more of a more of a competitive candidate because of his TV personality status, right? So it makes sense if you think about it. Okay, TV personality is going to be able to win a race. So that race in Pennsylvania is between Mehmet Oz and John Fetterman. Currently, John Fetterman is winning by about 5 to 10 points in the polls. And that's substantial considering that Pennsylvania is a swing state, and even more substantial considering the political environment during this time. I mean, the whole country right now, like the politics of it all, it's leaning towards the Republicans for the reason that basically you have so much unpopularity from the side of Joe Biden, right? And this has translated to him having a very low disapproval rating, right? And this has given or should give the Republicans more of an advantage. But because Mehmet Oz is so unpopular in Pennsylvania and John Fetterman's so widely known, John Fetterman is up. In another case, you have in the state of Nevada, for example, you have Cortez Masto, who is a very unpopular incumbent. In this case, is the Democrat who is the incumbent. She, on the other hand, is not like, she's very unpopular, but on the other hand, she's still up in the polls, albeit by a lower margin, against her opponents whose name escapes me. But it's an interesting dynamic there. Another proof of how, like, even though Democrats are down, like they're supposed to be down because Joe Biden's approval rating is so low, you still have her up. The same thing is happening in Arizona, but in the case of Arizona, it's another case of like a popular candidate like Mark Kelly. In the case of Georgia, you have a very similar scenario with Warnock. Raphael Warnock being incredibly popular in the state. He was a former, he is still a reverend, right? But in the case of Georgia, it's more like to do with the fact that Walker, his opponent, his Republican opponent, is also like not very charismatic, not very popular and whatnot. Everybody knows him, but he's not very popular. This leads us to a scenario where the Democrats could very well win all 4 seats. And they need to win at least 3 to keep the Senate majority. So it's kind of like a tight rope, but the fact that they're leading in all of them, it's a good sign for them. That's in the Senate. In the House is a different story. The Republicans are leading by a very wide margin. My own prediction is that the Democrats are slightly going to keep the House by a 50-50 majority, with the Vice President breaking the tie. But in the House, I believe that the Republicans are still going to win because this gerrymandering makes it virtually impossible for the Democrats to win in an environment that is very much in favor of the Republicans. That being said, this kind of like wraps up kind of like my explanation as to like how the midterms are shaping up so far. I did make a short video on it, but I did want to make like a more long-ended video like this one. In addition to that, I kind of wanted to explain that this could all change in the next couple of months. Like 1 week in politics is like a year, essentially, right? So right now the Democrats are on top in the Senate. Next week you can have something humongous happening, like the public remembering about inflation, the state of the economy, the supply chain constraints. That could end up reminding the public of why they didn't like the Democrats in the first place. And you could have a total reversal in the Senate. And all of a sudden, all these candidates that were up on the Democratic side could end up faltering, essentially. So anyway, I'll make a follow-up video in which I'll discuss the state of the House in detail. This was just the Senate. But please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more videos.